Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver and Mark.
Welcome back to the evolution of horror. My name is Mike, and as ever, I am your host. We are currently in the middle of our Shocktober mini-series, in which we are going to be covering and discussing a whole range of horror-related items in the build-up to Halloween. Now, this week saw the release of a brand new horror genre, art house, grindhouse, whatever you want to call it, movie called Mandy. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about the movie Mandy. It's caused huge waves around the festival circuit. Critics are absolutely lapping it up, and so are audiences. And it stars Nic Cage in one of his most Nicolas Cagey performances. This movie is truly unique. It is one of a kind, and I guarantee you there is pretty much nothing else like it. If you haven't seen it yet, I would recommend you go along and watch it at your nearest cinema, because this movie especially absolutely needs to be seen on a big screen with loud speakers. You just need to become submerged in it for 2 hours. It actually had its UK premiere at London Film Festival last week, and the director, Panos Cosmatos, was down for the festival, so I had a little chat to him. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to talk to him for too long. It was only a very brief sort of 15-minute junket slot, so we didn't get to go into depth, but that means there are no spoilers. You don't have to worry if you haven't seen the movie. We talk very, very vaguely about some of the minor plot details, but then we just have a chat in general about kind of his love of the horror genre, what movies have inspired him throughout his career, and of course about working with Nicolas Cage. So here we go. This is my chat with Mandy's director, Panos Cosmatos. Panos, hello, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, yeah. First of all, Panos, if you could just sort of set the scene for me on this movie, where did the sort of seed of this idea sort of come about? I mean, it's such a unique film. When was this sort of born in your brain?
Well, in retrospect, I realized that it was kind of like I started writing it as almost an antidote to the first film that I made, Black Rainbow, because I started writing them at the same time. And Black Rainbow was such an intense, emotional, kind of strange experience to write that I think I as almost like unconsciously as like an antidote to that, I started writing something that was kind of the flip side of that. Something, because Black Rainbow was a sort of like a distorted metaphor about suppressing my grief, and so I think I realized I needed to write something that was like the volcanic explosion of releasing all those emotions and coming to grips with them. Yeah, I suppose it's bigger. It's more. It opens itself out more, doesn't it? There's a lot more of me in it. I think of the things I like, of the humor that I like, and all the things that I love in films and music because of that. Fantastic. Is it difficult when you're kind of, because it's such an incredibly stylish and visual film? Mm-hmm. How do you kind of translate that? I suppose when you're first at the sort of writing stages and you're sort of showing people scripts and that kind of thing. I mean, did you kind of have in your mind how you wanted this movie to look? Is that sort of what came first? I wanted both Black Rainbow and this film, and after completing Black Rainbow, I became sort of even more kind of committed to this idea of these sort of audio, visual, sensory, kind of very textured experiences. I mean, I try to make the scripts as evocative and atmospheric as possible, but at a certain point, getting artwork made and stuff like that is helpful. Definitely, yeah, of course. It's kind of what I loved about it is that it feels like it is such a sort of artistic genre film, I suppose. It's kind of art house meets grindhouse or something like that. I mean, is that kind of, did you sort of set out to make a genre film, a horror movie? I mean, how do you kind of see that movie in your mind? To me, it's all one. There should be no boundaries between what is art and what is commerce. Mm-hmm. The stuff I loved growing up was almost, exclusively on the commerce side, very entertaining kind of stuff. But, I also watched, for some reason I really liked like dramas about adults when I was young, so like Shoot the Moon was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, or like The Life According to Garp, and I really wanted to see My Dinner with Andre, Yeah. But at the same time, I'd watch, Raiders of the Lost Ark and stuff too, I felt interested by the adult world, and I wanted to, have a window into what I thought adulthood would be like when I was a kid. But in the 90s, I kind of got much more into exploring, independent film and foreign films, and really developed a great love for those filmmakers. So at a certain point, they became inseparable for me. It would be hard to make a film that didn't draw from both things.
Absolutely, yeah. I saw a lot of, being a massive horror fan, I saw a lot of movies like Evil Dead. Was that a kind of conscious sort of inspiration for you?
I think Evil Dead is Evil Dead. If I had to say what my two favorite films when I was growing up were, it probably would have been The Road Warrior and Evil Dead 2. I was almost like a religious fanatic about Evil Dead 2. I was obsessed with it. I loved everything about it. When I was a kid, I remember I was lucky enough to meet Sam Raimi once, and it was right before he made Darkman.
Yeah.
And so he started describing what his next film was about, and he was describing, that it was about this man who was horribly burned, but then developed liquid skin, and I literally had like an emotional meltdown. It was too much to have this man that I worship tell me about the next new awesome thing that he was doing. I just couldn't even, my body didn't know how to absorb that at all, so I think I just became like a blubbering mess.
I mean, yeah, because I saw, Nicolas Cage's performance, such an iconic performance, and obviously it's very much, it's so Nicolas Cage, but also there is a bit of Bruce Campbell in The Evil Dead to that sort of everything cranked up to 11 sort of way.
The two movies that made me realize that I wanted to make direct films for sure was I was watching Evil Dead 2 and Scorsese's After Hours back to back.
Oh yeah.
Because they're both dark, but they both also have humor.
Yeah,
and something about the sort of like overtly stylized mechanical camera movements in them suddenly made a switch flip in my mind where I realized how this was like a tool. This camera was a tool that you use to sort of express emotions.
Do you think, because everyone is there's a lot of movies right now, very popular movies that do sort of tap into, I suppose, that kind of nostalgia or influences from 80s movies. You see a lot of movies where you think, oh, it's a little bit John Carpenter, or it's a little bit. Why do you think that is? Is that just purely because of, I suppose, people like yourselves who grew up loving these movies? Is that sort of what
I think that's part of it?
contributed?
Back when we were growing up, there was a lot of movies that were sort of obsessed with the 50s.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought of nostalgia as something ridiculous. But the way I look at it now, though, is I feel like in the present, time has no meaning anymore.
Yeah.
And so I feel like now choosing an era for your film is almost like choosing a color,
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the right color? What's the right texture for the thing you're doing, any era.
Maybe people also just want to escape 2018 sometimes as well. That's
probably. Yeah.
I mean, we've talked quite a bit on this podcast about the horror genre and the way in which classically it's kind of, I suppose, very generally it's often looked down upon as a genre, I suppose.
Sure, yeah.
You don't often get a lot of Oscar-winning, horror movies or whatever it might be.
Right.
But that does seem to be sort of changing these last couple of years. You had, Mandy, however you want to categorize it, is getting incredible reviews. You had Get Out last year winning Oscars.
Yes.
I mean, why do you think this is? Do you think that quality has improved or people's perception is changing on the genre?
I don't know. It's a really good question. I think maybe a little bit of both. And I think it also maybe the time period has to do something with it. Like back in the 1940s or during the Depression, or was it during the war? Horror films really flourished because the world was so dark.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
It feels like it's reflecting the world more. Horror feels like it's reflecting the world more accurately than realism.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's true, isn't it? That's true. It gets to the point, you get see programs like Black Mirror or whatever. It's like how much more, sci-fi or dark can you go in a fictional world? That's
yeah. I mean, all that stuff's going to happen. That's on Black Mirror, all of it.
I know. We're living it. I know. Terrifying.
It's just a matter of time until every single one of those episodes comes true.
Oh God, it's like ticking them off one by one at the moment. It is, it's crazy. So tell me about the casting of Nic Cage then, because again, it feels almost impossible to imagine anyone but Nic Cage playing this role.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird because we bandied about so many different names, for all the different characters, and at some point, I thought that Nic Cage would be really interesting to play the cult leader, and I got word back that he was interested, and so I actually rewrote all of the dialogue for Jeremiah Sand to sort of to tailor it to him to have it be something that I thought he'd be perfect to be delivered by him. And I never ended up changing it back, by the way. But and I went and met with him, and the first thing he said to me was like, "I want to play Red Miller," and I was like, "Fuck." All right. It was kind of like a little kind of kick in the balls, and so I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but nice to meet you," or whatever. But I really didn't.
Oh, really? You weren't?
I didn't see it. I was very fixated on this idea of, and I had kind of fallen in love with the idea of him playing this outlandish character. But then I went home, and like a few weeks later, I actually had a dream where I was watching Mandy finished, and he was playing Red Miller, and it was so undeniably interesting that I woke up, and the first thing I did was call the producer and say, I think we might have made a mistake, and I think we should ask him to do it.
Amazing, fantastic. And you get, I suppose the whole spectrum of a Nic Cage performance in this as well.
I got really energized by the idea of being able to utilize his full kind of range in a way that I've never, I don't think, been done before.
I think what's really wonderful is, and probably why it's being praised as one of his best performances, is because it takes his time to unravel, I suppose, with this character and what he goes through. And that first half of the movie is a Nic Cage that it feels like we haven't seen in a while, in a way.
I mean, I wanted him to be able to go into these sort of more Dada-esque levels of visibility, but I wanted it to feel organic to the film and not just like a stunt.
And what was he like generally to sort of work with? I mean, working with somebody like that, was it a daunting prospect?
No, all of my interactions with him were really mellow, and I felt that he actually, from my experience, had a very thoughtful, modulated approach to how to render the character.
And so eventually, the character of Jeremiah stayed the same as you had originally intended it on the page?
Yeah, I think the rewrite that I did for Cage gave the character like a better kind of weird 70s flavor, Yeah, certain vocabulary and stuff that rang more true to me.
Yeah, there's a certain 70s kind of. I suppose there are. I would thought of people like Manson and people like that with the character of Jeremiah. Again, was that a sort of conscious decision, or was it just sort of drawing on those types of people?
I think it was drawing on all those types of people. I've done, over the years. I've read so many different, nonfiction books about cults and stuff. But at a certain point, I actually started to feel like, as we were going into pre-production for the movie, or maybe it was right before that, Trump got voted into office, and I thought, to me now, San almost feels like if you put Mike Pence and Donald Trump into the Brundle telepod. And this comes out the other end,
Oh, God. Literally the worst nightmare you can imagine. It's so true, because what's so brilliant about him is that he's terrifying one minute, and then he's like this small, fragile,
which I think is generally the case.
Yes, yeah.
And that's something that I felt even more kind of driven to have the character be after that election. What was the kind of biggest challenges for you in shooting the film then, would you say? Time and money. Yeah. We had very little of both. Yeah. And I thought making Black Rainbow was hard, but I was fucking kidding myself. This was 1,000 times more challenging. Just because of the sort of bigger scale, more ambitious. Yeah, it was quite ambitious what we were trying to do with the amount of time and money we had, and it was honestly some kind of Christmas miracle that we were able to get it shot. And incredible reception since it's been playing on the circuit. I mean, tell me, is it? I heard it got a standing ovation at Cannes. That's right, yeah. Incredible. I mean, what did that feel? I mean, were you ever expecting, again, a movie like this? Were you expecting this kind of reaction? No, no, not at all. I thought maybe the reaction would be like that was for Black Rainbow, but slightly more enthusiastic. Yeah, because it's a bit more accessible of a film because of by its very nature. It's a little bit more satisfying. And I think people sometimes go in with expectations when they hear it's a Nic Cage movie as well, I think undoubtedly, yeah. What do you think of like his recent movies, the sort of past 10 or 15 years of Nicolas Cage, movies like The Wicker Man and that kind of thing? Well, I think I actually really like The Wicker Man. Do you? Yeah, I think The Wicker Man feels like a strange Technicolor dream or something. Yeah. I actually like to think of it as an existence game that he loses at the end. Yeah. Badly loses at the end. Yeah. There's something of that kind of so choose your own adventure with a B ending. Oh, the bees. There's something of that kind of folk horror in Mandy as well. That kind of dangerous people in the woods. Well, I think it's one of the reasons maybe why I the Wicker Man remake resonated with me a bit is because it's filmed where I grew up. Oh, right. In the same area, and so I see like my home reflected in that strange dream way in the Wicker Man remake, and it's it's just a sort of innate kind of cosmic horror of the Pacific Northwest. you
Yeah,
know?
there was a screening of the movie last night in London at a chapel, at a Union chapel. Were you there last night?
I was there. Yeah.
Incredible. Because apparently the church had to watch it and approve it as well before they showed it, which is brilliant. I mean,
I've been thinking about this, and I think that their mentality is that allowing sinners to come into the presence of God,
yes,
might change one or two of them, and in that regard, they're doing the right thing.
Yes, that's it. And I just want to ask you as well briefly about Elijah Wood and sort of what he contributed to this, because I think it's really interesting. A lot of people don't know probably that Elijah Wood he's this huge horror fan, isn't he? And he's actually produced and been behind a lot of recent movies. Yeah,
Elijah's got really deep knowledge of music and film, and really loves horror and I was very sort of reticent. I was very careful after Black Rainbow of trying to find producers that would I thought protect me, because I heard so many low grade horror stories about just getting directors, friends of mine, getting screwed over in the most ridiculous, pointless ways for no reason whatsoever. Other than just the ego of some maniac. Yeah. Sounds familiar? Yeah. Yep. So, I really wanted to try to find producers that I felt like I could trust. And I don't know, something about the way Spectre Vision handled themselves and the individuals, in that company is very genuine.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And what are you hoping that when people go and buy their ticket and go to see Mandy on the big screen, what are you sort of hoping they'll get out of it or they'll experience, when they go see it?
I hope that they have an emotional reaction. I think some people go in because they think of it as a freak show, but that's fine. Whatever gets them in the door. But, I think that if they open themselves up to it, I think they might find it's actually a surprisingly emotional film.
It is absolutely. And actually, I was going to ask you about that. Tonally, it must be a tricky sort of tightrope to walk, I suppose, because it does go into comedy, horror. It is very moving at points. Is that difficult as a director to kind of straddle all those areas?
I get it's just a purely instinctual process directing.
Yeah.
And you try to chart the course of these things from above, and then render them in the moments that you have to get them, and then if you've done your job and gotten the material, then you can fine tune those things in the editing.
And what's next for you? Have you got any projects sort of in the pipeline or anything lined up?
No.
No, have a nice break. Enjoy Mandy for a bit. Yeah. I'm
gonna go home and hang out with my wife and my cat. And
good. Yeah. Amazing. Are you going to get a chance to catch anything at London Film Festival in the next sort of few days? Or
I'm afraid I don't think I will.
No.
Yeah. That's the sad thing about traveling and promoting the film with the festivals is you rarely get a chance to actually go see any of the movies.
I bet, absolutely. Thank you so much. Finally, just last question I always ask everyone. I usually ask, what's your favourite horror movie? But I guess it's Evil Dead 2, is it, by the sounds of it?
Maybe. I mean, the list is long.
Yeah.
Lately, my favorite is The Blob from 1988.
Oh, yeah, great film. One of those really good remakes as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Just amazing, state-of-the-art mechanical effects. And, I just find it a very soothing film. I usually put it on and go to sleep, too.
Yeah. Are you a fan of the kind of, the practical effects as opposed to, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think they both have their place. I think we're finally, now in the last few years, coming back to a place where people are realizing that the benefits of both and that they can be used in tandem. Yeah.
And what about your do you remember what your scariest ever movie experience is?
It's a very good question. I remember the biggest jump scare I ever experienced was in The Exorcist 3.
Oh, yeah, that is amazing, isn't it?
That's got two of the best jump scares in horror history, in my opinion.
Yeah. Never fails every time.
Yeah. I remember I was sitting at the back. I'll never forget it. I was sitting at the back of the theater, and so I literally saw the wave of people jumping through the crowd as it happened.
Yes.
It was kind of beautiful. I'd actually experienced that only once before, and that was with Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Large Marge.
Oh my God, yeah, that is wonderful as well, isn't it? Classic. Panos, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And there we have it. A huge thank you once again to the brilliant Panos Cosmatos for taking the time to chat to me. I really think this guy is one to watch, and I cannot wait to see what he comes up with next. So what did you think of Mandy? Have you seen it yet? I'd love to know your thoughts. Get in touch. The email address is evolutionofhorror@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter @evolutionpod or on Facebook. That's facebook.com/evolutionofhorror. Don't forget, you can also find us on Letterboxd @evolutionpod, on Instagram @theevolutionofhorror, and you can join the discussion group. That's the Evolution of Horror discussion group, and that can be found on Facebook. Now, if you're interested in my thoughts on Mandy, I am going to be discussing the movie in depth, in spoilerific detail, with Brad Hanson in a couple of weeks after the madness of London Film Festival has finished. So keep your eyes peeled for an upcoming Shocktober episode in which we dissect this crazy, crazy acid trip in hell. But that's it for now, so join us again very soon for all of this and more on the Evolution of Horror.